organizations who rely on these funds.
All right. Hello, members of the press. Thank you for hearing our words today. My name is Shimona Moreno, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Executive Director at 350 Seattle. Today I stand before you not just as the Executive Director of 350 Seattle, but as someone who works and lives in Seattle and who wants to see the city and all of its residents succeed. Today I stand here to introduce a diverse coalition of community groups, labor unions, and service providers who have come together to advocate for the continued use of the JumpStart Payroll Expense Tax to address some of the most pressing long-term needs of our city. This tax and its spending plan were originally supported by a broad and diverse coalition of over 70 community organizations, 350 Seattle being one of them. Labor unions, businesses, faith groups, and service providers deeply embedded in Seattle communities and representing immense expertise and lived experience with the pressing problems of our city. When the tax was passed in 2020, it was understood that COVID-19 pandemic represented a unique crisis that called for an urgent response. JumpStart funds allowed Seattle to avoid an austerity budget and gave tangible assistance to address community needs. But the coalition also identified 4 longer-term needs and crises that the city had historically underinvested in: affordable housing, the climate crisis, equitable development to prevent displacement, and economic resilience for small businesses. These were put into law as a long-term spending plan for JumpStart revenues. I am here today to remind the current City Council, along with our broader Seattle community, that the spending categories for JumpStart were created for a reason. The reason is this: these are the priorities that Seattleites need to truly have healthy neighborhoods. Knowing that the needs for these investments has only grown since 2020, we were disturbed that Mayor Harrell proposed legislation to permanently remove the city's commitment to spend JumpStart revenue in these areas. Without these critical investments, the city will be unable to address the concurrent crises it faces with the urgency and vision they deserve. Our communities deserve to see progress. Yesterday, we learned the Budget Chair Strauss will put forward an alternative proposal that, while slightly better than the mayor's, still removes any firm commitment to continue investing in these critical areas. We do not believe such an impactful decision should be made in such a rushed and unilateral fashion. The transfer of JumpStart funds to the general fund should be restricted to the 2025-2026 biennial budget. Our next speakers will speak to the importance of elements of the JumpStart long-term spending plan.
Just talk like you're talking to them back there, and the mic will pick you up.
Good evening. My name is Debolina Banerjee, Senior Climate Policy Manager at Puget Sound Sage, a member of the city's Green Union Oversight Board, and a resident of D5. I'm here to tell you that the mayor's and the council's intent to solve the deficit by diverting JumpStart funding will put us far behind in fighting climate change and creating community resilience. We, Puget Sound Sage, stand in solidarity with Seattle's environmental justice community and our partners in the JumpStart Defense Coalition here today. We call on the city to fulfill its commitments to ensure we prosper in place against displacement, safeguard folks against economic crisis like inflation, and build resilience in the face of climate change. Communities already marginalized should not have to choose between food access, secure housing, and climate protections, nor should community programs have to compete against each other for funding. Over the last few years, Seattle has become a national leader in proactive policy and investments that will help stop climate change and minimize harm to low-income and BIPOC communities. Many of these investments are backed by JumpStart funds, which are now at risk. JumpStart Green New Deal funded community projects include cultural preservation, intergenerational programming, connecting people to the land, climate resilience, green jobs, youth-led awareness initiatives, urban farming programs, climate-focused education, hyper-local environmental cleanup, and more through programs like the Environmental Justice Fund and Duwamish River Opportunity Fund. The proposed legislation changes that forever and removes all of the community priorities from JumpStart spending. JumpStart raised more dollars each year, yet crucial programs have never received the full percentage allocation as originally intended due to deficits in other revenue sources. That is already impacting programs like Green New Deal, which has never received the full 9% of the revenue. As a result, the Environmental Justice Fund and the Duwamish River Opportunity Fund are facing significant reduction in the budget proposal, affecting almost half organizations who rely on these funds. In turbulent times like now, when we are anticipating several rollbacks of rights and regulations from a new federal government, we need stronger climate and environmental protections locally in our home that are centered on racial justice and equity. We need the city to listen to communities urging to protect JumpStart and complementing it with additional progressive revenues.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming today. My name is Nancy Huizar, and I am a longtime resident of Seattle. I went to Franklin High School, I graduated from the University of Washington, and I now serve on the Green New Deal Oversight Board. My parents came here when they were in their early 20s. My mom came from the Philippines, and when she came here, she didn't have asthma. And in her time here, she immigrated when she was 25 years old. And she lived in Beacon Hill, where, if you live or work or play around Beacon Hill, you know that there's freeways nearby, there's the airplanes going overhead. And in her time living here, she developed asthma. And growing up, I really thought that it was just normal for people to have asthma. My brother had it too, and my best friends had it. And it wasn't until later in life that I understood and realized what environmental justice communities were, and that is a part of who I am and how I grew up. That many of the community members that I bring here today with me are folks who are in these communities that are often left to their own devices to try to figure out their own solutions. And so that's why I'm coming to talk about the importance of the Environmental Justice Fund and protecting the JumpStart spending plan, because the Environmental Justice Fund, for a lot of our communities, we're trying to do our day-to-day. We're trying to support our families, trying to work just to put food on the table. And the Environmental Justice Fund really helps folks think about how do we look at health, how do we look at economic justice, and look at these broader issues and connect them to our environmental safety. And thinking about those priorities with this proposed spending, with a significant decrease in the Environmental Justice Fund and the Duwamish River Opportunity Fund, that takes away a lot of opportunities for our communities to have their buy-in and to talk about the solutions that they want to see in their own communities and to advocate for the solutions that we need. We've been feeling a lot of these issues already, right? Pollution, terrible air quality, poor water quality, and we know the solutions for these, and we need our city to support us and continue in funding our solutions. And so with that, I'm asking our City Council to protect our JumpStart spending plan, to convene the Oversight Board for the JumpStart, and for raising other progressive revenue. Our communities were the ones who brought this progressive revenue and got it to pass. Please help us in sustaining these funds. Thank you. Nancy, N-A-N-C-Y, Huizar, H-U-I-Z-A-R.
My name is James W. Lovell. Let me get too loud for you. Last name is L-O-V-E-L-L. First name James, J-A-M-E-S. So I'm the Chief Community Development Officer for the Chief Seattle Club. I'm an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians from Belcourt, North Dakota. I was born and raised here in Seattle. I'm speaking today because we've done amazing work at Chief Seattle Club, because we have tackled the region's greatest disparity in homelessness. Native people are 1 to 2% of the population of Seattle, and yet we are about 30% of the chronically homeless. There are deep systemic issues why we are 30%, but there are also bright spots. That number used to be higher. It has gone down because of JumpStart's committed focus on housing. We have opened 339 units of permanent supportive housing in the last 2.5 years, and over 250 of those units are supported through JumpStart. With JumpStart's progressive revenue and focus on housing, we are not only solving this problem, but we are doing it in a way that breaks the systemic injustice of regressive taxes. With JumpStart's investments, Chief Seattle Club has taken a stand against the systemic violence of homelessness. We have created safe, culturally appropriate spaces where Native people can heal, rebuild, and thrive. We've expanded housing, healthcare, and life-saving services to address the unique needs of our community. This funding has been a lifeline, but it's just the beginning. We need JumpStart to continue to address this crisis in our region. JumpStart has been proof that Seattle values its people and their futures by prioritizing the housing needs of the community in the original JumpStart plan. This isn't just an allocation of funds. It's a declaration of values, a promise to build a city where everyone can flourish. There's a powerful vision of one Seattle, and it speaks to the promise that a unified city can fulfill. It invites collaboration across all boundaries. But without JumpStart's continued dedication to housing, we will not have one Seattle. We will have one Seattle for the financially stable residents, and a separate transitory Seattle where families switch schools every year due to rising rents that stem from a lack of housing. We will have children saying goodbye to their friends in the middle of the school year, interrupting their educations, and tearing communities apart because we did not provide an environment where there was adequate housing. It will be a city where we will try and offer housing to our unsheltered neighbors, only to come up empty-handed because we didn't build enough units yet again. The additional revenue generated by JumpStart must be safeguarded for these priorities. To divert it elsewhere would betray the trust of the very communities that need it most. We've built momentum. Let's keep moving forward together. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lauren Fay, and I am here today on behalf of DESC, that's the Downtown Emergency Service Center, where I have proudly worked for the past 17 years. DESC provides shelter, housing, and behavioral health support to people living with long histories of homelessness and complex mental health and substance use challenges. We currently operate 17 apartment buildings throughout Seattle, with 4 more in development. Unlike typical independent rental housing, permanent supportive housing is just that, supportive. When people who have been living outdoors or in shelter programs move into one of our permanent supportive housing units, they get consistent access to services such as case management, healthcare, substance use disorder treatment, and on-site staff support 24/7. However, they are not patients, they are tenants. Like any tenant, they sign a lease when moving into their studio apartment, giving them a secure, permanent place to call home. Not every person experiencing homelessness needs supportive services like the kind we offer in our buildings, but everyone in the city needs affordable housing. I stand before you today deeply concerned about the proposed changes to the Payroll Expense Tax and JumpStart spending plan. While Budget Chair Strauss's legislation aims to address the city's financial challenges, it risks undermining the very foundations of our affordable housing initiatives. The proposed shift from required to optional language in the spending plan is alarming. It removes crucial protections for our most vulnerable residents and the dedicated workforce that support them. By eliminating the breakdown within the 62% that is currently allocated towards affordable housing, we jeopardize the operating, maintenance, and service funding that is vital for current and future supportive housing. Moreover, the addition of several new spending categories, including the very broadly described programs and services supported by the city's general fund, opens the door to diverting funds away from their intended purpose in perpetuity. This, coupled with the elimination of the oversight body, significantly weakens accountability and transparency in how these critical funds are utilized. Let me be clear, these changes will not provide Seattle with the economic security this plan presumes. Unlike communities around the country, formerly homeless residents in supportive housing in Seattle have been shielded from the nonprofit housing provider downfall that has harmed similar tenants in other places. Skid Row Housing in Los Angeles, a large and respected housing provider, went under just a few years ago. By contrast, our community has invested in preserving and maintaining housing for our residents, understanding that it is essential to addressing and preventing homelessness. That is why we must retain the existing guardrails and protect the 62% allocation of JumpStart spending that goes towards affordable housing as it is written. The details within the plan also matter deeply. JumpStart's operating costs, maintenance expenses, and service provisions support tenants in affordable housing by addressing their essential needs. And the individuals who deliver these services are social service workers who for years were significantly underpaid and understaffed. For too long, government contractors have expected us to pay our staff's wages that do not adequately compensate them for the work they do and the skills that they have for this profession. JumpStart asks us as employers to actually invest more in our workforce each year, and at DESC, we gladly comply. We have seen amazing results and we cannot go back. The reality is, without the assurance that funding will be released on time, the livelihoods of hundreds of workers and the stability of thousands of formerly homeless people living with disabilities will be put into jeopardy, leading to significant cuts in essential services such as behavioral health and substance use disorder treatment. While we understand this year the city may need to use increased revenue projections from payroll expense tax for supplemental purposes, we strongly recommend, at minimum, keep guardrails intact to protect JumpStart's affordable housing, equitable development and Green New Deal spending plans as they are written. Let us work together as a community to find solutions to our city's budget challenges. Thank you. Yeah. My name is Lauren Fay, that's Lauren Fay, F-A-Y.
Hello, my name is Yordanos Teferi, Y-O-R-D-A-N-O-S, Teferi, T-E-F-E-R-I. I serve as the Executive Director of the Multicultural Community Coalition, a place-based community development organization working to anchor our immigrant and refugee communities in the Rainier Valley. Over the past decade, MCC has been developing one of the 5 demonstration projects for Seattle's Equitable Development Initiative. MCC's project aims to ensure that our communities who have built, shaped, and enriched Southeast Seattle since the early 1980s continue to thrive in place. Our project was envisioned by our communities and is heavily invested in by public funds as a vast and holistic space that aims to anchor several community-based organizations who serve tens of thousands of immigrants, refugees, and people of color through a service delivery center and a vital cultural innovation center. MCC is also a member of the Race and Social Equity Task Force, which is a coalition of community-based organizations from the Central District, Chinatown International District, and Southeast Seattle, which represent neighborhoods that were historically redlined and are ones that remain high displacement risk areas for our communities. Our set was instrumental in the establishment of Seattle EDI and continues to serve in a community oversight role, which while also working tirelessly to grow and sustain the initiative. It is with this mission that I speak before you today. The revenue from JumpStart is the largest single source of funding for EDI, which again supports community-driven development projects that anchor communities and prevent displacement. Since its inception, EDI has awarded approximately $117 million to 76 unique community-led and driven projects in high displacement risk areas. This was accomplished with the addition of JumpStart revenue, and even still, there were about 60 other community-based organizations that applied for EDI funds but were not able to be funded, largely due to limited funds. This displacement crisis is only getting worse in our city. And EDI is a major tool that has been impactful in stabilizing our communities. This is exactly the reason Seattle EDI has grown to become a nationally recognized community-driven program that is strongly positioned and at the ready to address the displacement crisis facing our communities. It carries out the city's commitment to addressing the harms of past racial inequities, advancing innovative anti-displacement solutions, and serving as a leader among the nation by addressing the wealth gap. We urge the Seattle City Council and the Mayor to maintain the integrity of the JumpStart Payroll Expense Tax spending plan, convene the Oversight Committee, and ensure that any action to transfer revenue from the JumpStart Payroll Expense Tax to the general fund be limited to the upcoming 2025-2026 biennium. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jesse Simpson, Jessesimson. I'm the Director of Government Relations and Policy for the Housing Development Consortium. The Housing Development Consortium, or HDC, represents all of the major nonprofit affordable housing developers working across King County to build the affordable housing that this city and our region beyond desperately need. Seattle has a deep housing crisis. For far too long, our most vulnerable residents and neighbors, those struggling with the cost of rent, homelessness, or working in essential jobs in the city and needing to commute long distances, have been left without stable and affordable homes. But as deep as these problems are, we also know it works. We know that investment in affordable housing helps to stabilize people. It helps to enable those who are struggling on the streets rebuild their lives in permanent and supportive housing, and it helps those who can never be able to afford market rate rents in the city, but who are absolutely essential to the functioning of our society and economy to live near their work. To do this work, however, our members need funding, first and most of all. The JumpStart Payroll Expense Tax is one of 3 dedicated revenues for affordable housing within the city, standing alongside the mandatory housing affordability and the Seattle Housing Levy. This 3-pronged strategy is essential for scaling up the investments in affordable housing that we need. JumpStart has been a game changer for our members and our city more broadly. It's enabled our members to build and preserve thousands of affordable homes, create supportive housing for people exiting homelessness, and bring housing stability to families and individuals across Seattle. We've seen projects break ground that would have otherwise been delayed or cut entirely, and we've been able to scale up service investments by stabilizing workforce in permanent supportive housing and actually fill the positions that need to turn housing into safe and supportive homes. But we can't take this progress for granted. While we understand Seattle's budget challenges, we need to remember that JumpStart was never intended as a stopgap for the general fund. It was designed to make Seattle a more equitable city where housing isn't a privilege but a right. We urge our leaders to protect JumpStart's integrity and retain the spend plan's commitment to affordable housing, equitable development, and the Green New Deal. We know the need for more affordable housing is immense, but so is the capacity of our sector to scale up the investments in affordable housing if only more funding is available. Just this past fall, the Office of Housing received over $360 million in requests to build and preserve over 2,400 affordable homes, but only $112 million is available. The amount that JumpStart can be used to scale up affordable housing investments is not limited to however much was calculated that it would originally raise back in 2020. Our members can scale up and quickly the production of affordable homes in our city, but additional funding is essential. Thanks for your time.
Thank you to all of our speakers, and I want to reiterate, in the interest of good governance, we are also calling on the city to convene the JumpStart Oversight Committee promised by our original legislation. The council already appointed 5 members, but the mayor failed to make his appointments or convene the committee. Now, both the mayor's and the budget chair's proposals would eliminate this oversight body altogether. We recognize that there is a serious structural issue with the city's general fund, which is projected to continue to have deficits in 2027 and beyond. Responsible leadership means working to secure and deploy the revenue necessary to make our city healthy, safe, housed, working, thriving, and green. This structural deficit needs a structural solution that does not compromise the JumpStart investments. And city leaders now have 2 years to find one. New progressive revenue needs to be part of this solution. The city already began that work last year with the Seattle Revenue Stabilization Work Group. We urge our elected leaders to push that work forward with all urgency. Thank you.